Our next speaker is Dr. Jonathan Pabalate. Dr. Pabalate is a nurse anesthetist who teaches in the Anesthesiology Nursing Program. He also has the most challenging introduction, I'll tell you, I did it 5 times this morning. He designs state-of-the-art computational analytics solutions for healthcare with a focus on quality and outcomes in anesthesiology. He's an invited international speaker and published author in the healthcare space, and his topic is online presentations with Google Hangouts.
All right. Can you guys hear me okay if I talk about this loud? All right. Thank you very much for having me, Deb and the CERT team. Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Google Hangouts and how our program kind of innovated how we deliver online course content. And it really dovetails in with the last presentation because while that was a good example of online proctoring, I struggled with the same concept. You know, global healthcare, for instance, is not the most engaging topic, I have to admit. And there's not many books on the matter, but it's an integral part of our curriculum. It's taken during the summer. We have a mixture of both anesthesiology nursing students as well as other graduate health master students that take the class as well. And you know, for me, when I got asked to teach it, I looked at how it was taught before. And how it was taught before was, here's the book, read the book, we give you some blogs to type in some of your thoughts, and also write some papers, and go ahead and do it. Well, as it gained more popularity, I said, well, I don't really like the blog concept. Didn't really work well for our students. They're taking enormous loads already for our program. And so I really wanted to kind of change it, make it engaging. So in my first iteration, I had a lot of just, you know, how are we going to do this? Let's just do lots of papers. Well, I didn't imagine the concept of grading 35 5 to 10 page papers every 2 weeks, and I was quickly overrun. So I went to the folks at CERT and I said, please help me, I'm dying, and we kind of re-envisioned it this way. So a little bit about our program. If you want to follow me on Twitter, right there. So if we look at the problem, you know, our global healthcare course really had no deep community. It was like, here, log in, type some stuff, and it really had no engagement. You know, and as we all know, if you examine the habits for millennials and the next generation, they really deeply desire meaning and community, and I would say notoriety, just not for doing much, but anything that they like to post lots of things on the internet. So we have students all over the place in our program, and how do we really accomplish meaning? So the traditional ways, we had paper, we write it down. Now we've got iPads everywhere. Now how do I do that all over the world? So for our program, we have, you know, this is Shands at Jacksonville here. We have students here at Tampa General Hospital on the other side of the state. We also have students in Halifax Medical Center. We also have students that occasionally, a couple times a year, travel over to the Sound of Music land in Austria at Paracelsus University. We have an agreement over there, as well as to the University Center, Medical Center in Amsterdam. As you can imagine, it's hard to connect all of these students that they happen to be over there, not to make them fly back to take an exam or go to a course or anything like that. In addition, how do I keep it meaningful and engaging to them? So there's 3 main goals. So we kind of re-envision, like, what would make it meaningful? I don't want to just read the book and write a paper. But it would be meaningful if I said this: pick anyone in the world and talk to them about what it's like to either be a healthcare provider or a recipient of healthcare in somewhere else other than the United States. Okay? It can be anywhere. And that provides lots of options. We have people from the Philippines, Amsterdam, India, the UK, a great opportunity to kind of talk about healthcare in a different construct. You know, and how do we record that? How do we engage them? Well, I told them to get a Google Plus Hangout account. And I want you don't have to fly over there. You just connect. You can broadcast it to YouTube and try to make it brief. I don't want a 30-minute presentation. I want it down to 5. YouTube gives you those abilities to do that. And we gathered together for some student presentations. At the very end of the semester, we had kind of this colloquium where we gathered together and we summarized some of these differences. And this made it meaningful on a number of levels, namely because we got to talk to teenagers, adults, practitioners, and recipients of healthcare, all of who were experiencing healthcare in a completely different modality than we currently experience it. And in this case, all of our students are healthcare providers, so they're already providers of the system. And then the last part is we give oral final exam evaluations. So for me, I wanted to kind of re-envision I don't want to give a multiple choice test. I can do pretty good on that. In fact, when the last presenter was talking about, like scanning the entire textbook, OCR text recognition, looking for unique keywords just to find a better answer? Yeah, I mean, when I was a student, I thought about like, that'd be the easiest way to do it. If you're in the online thing, there's a really low risk of getting caught. Sure, go ahead and do it, right? But I don't want to do that because it doesn't accomplish learning. It's a hoop I have to jump through. I have no desire to do that. So I had to kind of re-envision, how do I make that meaningful? And so I proposed this to them. Like at the end, you're going to have a oral final examination. It's only going to last 5 to 10 minutes. You don't have to be alone. You can be in your car. You can be at Starbucks. You can be anywhere. You're going to meet me online, and we're going to talk about 3 topics, and you get to choose them, right? But if they gathered together and there was a pair of them, they couldn't choose the same topics. And my evaluation is like it's really easy. You either discuss competently and you exhibit mastery of the topics that you chose to talk about, which are in the book, which they had to write some papers about, or you kind of fluff it, which I'm going to be able to tell, or you don't know what the heck you're talking about and you're not going to get a good grade. And the final oral exam was about 30% of their grade, so it had a lot of weight to it. Everything else was like really low stakes. So, this is kind of how we re-envision it. So how do we do that? So as I said before, millennials, they long for community, notoriety, if you know about that. They want to engage in conversation. They want to engage and talk about it so they can really kind of massage the information into their head. It doesn't work. There's a lot of different learning styles that exist, especially in, for adult learners, for young learners. And so we have to be able to adapt the way that we deliver our content so we can accomplish knowledge transfer. So Google Plus happened to facilitate this easy use because it didn't require me to call a hospital administrator in Amsterdam and say, hey, I need you to unlock UDP ports 1024 through 65,000 and open a hole in your file. It didn't have to do any of that. If you could get to Google, you could do this. So that was easy. The other cool thing is about 60%, 70% of my students already had Gmail accounts. No big deal. So just all my instructions were like, you see that little plus sign in the top left corner? And I'm like, yeah, I don't know what that's for. Yeah, hit it. And they would hit it. I'm like, now add me into your circles. And I made them into the little circles and scheduled their Hangout exams. And this was really motivating. So there's an article here in Forbes. There's actually a lot of content about how we struggle with solving today's problems with people who aren't really motivated to jump through the hoops that we do. But they're going to be the ones in charge of doing that anyways. So how did I do it? I set up and created an event in Google. I invited them, put it on the calendar. They just joined the Hangout, and voila, here we are. So here's an example. I think it's the volume. You don't have to hear the volume. I'm basically talking to them saying, hey, welcome to the Hangout. These are my students that gave me permission to talk about it and show it. And I said to them, I want you to pick any three definitions, any 3 terms that you learned about in the book. I'm going to pause this just for a second because I want you to notice what I have on my side. I know who the students are because they've signed up for their appointment. In the background over here, the red button. Right there, you know what that is? That's her paper that she wrote on the topic that she said she wanted to talk about. So I'm just reading what she wrote. So did she just read the knowledge and then, regurgitate it? Or did she read it and then it went right out the other ear and I'm like on to the next topic? In this particular one, that was the case. So she was like, well, it's, there are lots of ums. I'm like, okay. I'm looking at them just like an online proctor because I am the online proctor. And they're communing with me. They're engaging with me. And this one didn't do as well as the other one. The other one exhibited, it was obvious, mastery. She goes, yes, I love to talk about EMIC and EDIC types of transformational transcultural nursing. I mean, it just spilled out of her. She's not regurgitating it. It was actual knowledge transfer. It was really easy. And I thought it was a much better way than just having a 50-question test. And somebody may ask, was it worth it? For faculty experience, I loved it. It was a lot of work to figure out how to do it, but I had a lot of assistance. And I thought it was meaningful. I asked some of the students, I actually just tweeted this before, right? Dr. Hooper talks about proctoring challenges. Look what one of my students who took that course just this last summer said within a minute. When they needed it most, right? So that was my innovation. I'd be happy to talk about any questions or any comments. Yes, sir.
Actually, I was going to support you on the oral examinations. I think it's great because we talk about cheating in the women that complete arthritis. It takes more of your time as an instructor to do that, but it's invaluable. The students, in reality, they really are well prepared. fair.
Yeah.
So
I was just going to bring this up and say that I think it's a great idea. And
And it was very difficult because, like, when we have written exams, we can kind of validate the questions, validate the responses. Oral exams are a lot harder. So I had to, I'm fully not qualified to say, yeah, let me just spin up some questions. So I deliberately made it simple, really easy. And you either know it or you don't. And I mean, I had the papers that they wrote right up there. It's really easy. Blackboard made that easy to pull it up. And man, if they're not reading, they can't. They're looking right at it. If they're like doing this, or that was a classic picture. I'm asking my phone. Ask Siri, what is the answer? Yes, Jeff.
I have a question.
Oh, sorry. Yes, sir.
did you try to have an internal conversation with the students with Google Hangouts? So you use Google Hangouts, you in fact as instructor with them, right? Did you try to use Google Hangout to have students-to-students interactions kind of things?
Not in this iteration, but that's what I want to do for the next one, when we do it next year.
Have you looked at voice threads?
Say again?
Voice threads,
No, I have not.
something that you may have to look at. But that allows students to post their own video of their own presentations, and other students can post their own video response to it. They can even post video response to a particular, like if student wants to post a question for a 3rd minute or 5th second on it, they can post response to questions.
So you can just go right to that chapter and just talk about it and look at the response.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
And it allows students to student instructions.
Thank you.
What was the program you were talking about?
Voice threads, VOICE, place It's not free, you have to pay for it.
With the oral exams, there's a degree of opinion, interpretation.
Yes.
And so I only relate this because I had a roommate in college and we were in the same degree program. He was thoroughly convinced that he had a professor that just didn't like him. And so we had a very similar experience. It was an oral exam of sorts. And I don't want to say he failed miserably, but he didn't do as good as I did, but that's. So he went. I mean, he brought it up with the administration saying this guy just didn't like me, and that's why he graded me. So I don't know if you've ever experienced this yet, but if that were to happen, how would that work in this situation?
That's one of the reasons why I really liked Google Hangout, because yeah, that's true. I may be, unfairly biased because I just didn't like the student, although I love all students. And but I don't know. Like, I did my best to kind of set the number one. I communicated the expectations of what I wanted, so they knew the rubric by what they were going to be graded ahead of time. And then it was really easy. I mean, anyone, even their partner that was on the screen with them, could tell whether is it mastery, is it okay, or is it complete BS. It's one of those three, and that gave the thumbs up, the middle thumb, or no way.
That was the thing with just the rubric. I used to use rubrics for oral presentations all the time. You get the rubric for it.
I never
say it's just you don't like me.
And the other thing is, YouTube records it. So if there's anything in dispute, we can just rewatch the whole thing. Right. I can go, Dr. McDonough's, my boss, I was like, hey, he has lots of expertise in education. Let's sit down and talk together, and the whole faculty can watch it. If it really counts. So it doesn't have to go up the administrative chain. We can just kind of reevaluate. And if I move, I'm willing to admit it. But I think everybody, like I asked at the end, I'm like, how did you feel this was? The overwhelming response was that it was really positive. It forced them to really study a lot more because they knew there's no way. There's no way to kind of fluff through an easy question, especially if it's really easy. There's no excuse for you to not know the answer. So, cool. Any other questions? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, and a big round of applause again for all of our keynote